Welcome to the Destination Imagination Team Manager Training 2016-2017. My name is Renee Rainville, and I am very excited to be here with you over the next hour and hopefully share with you a little bit of my enthusiasm for the Destination Imagination experience. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping. Please feel free to use the chat box and send me any sort of interactive messages are great to keep the conversation going. And at the bottom, underneath the screen, if you have any questions, please feel free to post those to me and I will answer them as we go along or at the end once we finish the slideshow presentation. There's also a poll at the bottom. Feel free to give me an answer on that so we can see how we're doing in our classrooms and around the, not only the UK, but around the world. And there's also a few offer buttons where you can either sign up for a Destination Imagination newsletter if you're interested in becoming an appraiser for one of our DI challenges, or if you would like more information on how to start a team and would like to find out how to get a discounted team number, you can feel free and click on any one of those buttons under the poll tab. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So, the roles of the team manager, creating a DI experience. For us here at Destination Imagination, it is very important that the adults that are involved in DI really focus on creating a long-term experience that kids walk away from and think, oh my gosh, I want to do that again, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much I know about myself now. And these are all key things that you as an adult, whether you're a teacher or a parent or even an older sibling, this is something that you're going to bring to these students. And from the very beginning, I'd like to thank you for that. So, what do you see on this picture? I always like to wait a few seconds so that people can look and sort of think about it, you know, sort of rummage around in their brains. What the heck am I looking at? So I'm sure that you've noticed already that we've got a team of people at the bottom of the screen, and that team of people seems to be thinking about quite a large project. This project looks quite challenging, and on top of it, we see that they're worried about, or maybe not worried, because actually they're all smiling and happy. So they're thinking about and taking into account the cost. What would it cost to do this project? They're taking into account the tools that they might need to build the items that have to go towards this project. They're also thinking about the technology and items that they may run into or need to utilize to make this project a success. For me, this illustration embodies what the DI experience is all about. The only thing missing here is the actual action. But all the planning, all the items that go into DI, this is what you see in front of you. Now, in order for you to make something like that happen, to guide a team of students to get to that point where they're just creating this innovative project, we try to provide certain resources that will help you get there. So on this screen, you'll see that we have the team challenge, roadmap, rules of the road, and training. And these are the 4 areas that you'll be able to access once you buy your team number in our resource area at www.destinationimagination.org. So when we look at the team challenge, the cover we have here is a scientific challenge, but each of them are set up with the same format. The team challenge is going to help the students understand how to do goal setting. It's going to help them understand success criteria. It's going to take them through using their research skills, and it's going to really get them to not only think outside of the box, but try to imagine that there is no box. And then what are the potential opportunities that could come up? The roadmap is basically a lesson guide for our adult team managers. Inside the roadmap, you're going to find everything broken down by lesson, activities that are there. They're very, very well explained. You can use all the activities. You can pick and choose the ones that work best for you, but use this roadmap as a documentation of your learning process, because it really helps later on as the students can reflect back and see what are the things that they've learned, what have they gone through, and what have they learned out of the process, okay? It also provides a timeline for you. It also shows the instant challenge, which is thinking under pressure and focusing on different types of team roles. Now, the rules of the road, this is our procedural manual. It's the rules and regulations. So procedures, material use, safety, and the no interference rule are all located in rules of the road. It's very important as a team manager that you know these things to keep your team safe, and also so that they understand what are the things that are permitted and what are things that are not permitted inside of their challenge. And then lastly, we offer you the training, and there's different types of training. At the diuk.org website, you'll find the How to DI small videos that will help you understand the navigation of the resource area. We also have YouTube, both for Destination Imagination and Destination Imagination UK, that you can visit, where you can find the How to DI videos as well as all of the trainings. And then we have our resource area. The resource area, again, is at destinationimagination.org. And there is a How to DI video on how to access the resource area. So you can feel free and look that up. So now you have all of those things, and we're going to get down to the core role of a Destination Imagination team manager, and this is being a life changer. Now, you can see on the screen the different quotes that are there from different DI children who have either graduated from the program or who are currently in the program. And a lot of them mention so frequently about getting over their fear, learning how to work better in a team, being able to appreciate themselves, being able to appreciate others. These are the things that our youngest to our oldest really, really bring out of the DI experience. We need to take into account that children come into DI with all of this background knowledge from movies, books, teachers, social media. It's a constant inundation of information that they get nowadays. And they know so much, they're sponges. So the DI experience, what we aim to do with that is to provide a framework where all of this information can then be used in new, exciting, innovative ways. It leads to those aha moments where, as an adult, I'm sure you've experienced them and you love them. It's like, if you think just for a minute, you close your eyes and you think about the last time you had an aha moment. Oh, it's like that feeling of the energy rushing up into your face, and you think, yes, that's it. This is the life-changing experience that many of our DI kids, DI students, walk away from the DI experience with. So that's not your only role. Of course, you have a few other roles being a DI team manager, which you can see listed on the screen. We're going to go through each one of these one by one, just so that you can later on go back and take a snapshot, or if you're not doing it right now, of this particular screen so that you have it. You can even take that, print it out, and have it up to remind yourself that these are the roles you should be going through each time you meet with your DI team, okay? So we have the creativity stimulator, educator, challenge expert, interference deflector, chief safety officer, and facilitator. And what I love about roles is that, because they're, in the end, they're boxes, aren't they? But these roles are so interchangeable and adaptable, just like all the roles you take on as a teacher or as an uncle or as an aunt or as a mother or as a father or as a brother or as a sister. We take on roles all the time that help us to help other people around us. So these roles just will help you get a little bit of an idea of the types of things that you will be doing and working with your students in your DI team. So we're going to start with the creativity stimulator. So my first question is, how many of you think that you are or are not creative? I'll bet you immediately had some sort of an emotional reaction, like, oh my gosh, yeah, no, I think a teacher told me once that I wasn't very creative, or I thought I was really creative, and then I watched somebody else build something and I realized that I'm not really that creative. All of us have had experiences like this where we question our own creativity. But I would like you to step out of that box, of that definition of creativity, and think about creativity as creativity skills. Finding and using the creativity skills that we need. They're actually employability skills that people need nowadays and will need in the very near future for the jobs that haven't even been invented yet, but they are going to be there, and kids are going to need to be able to react quickly, learn quickly, and apply quickly. And those creativity skills are what we're trying to stimulate through this particular role. So the creative process in DI has these steps, which you can see on your screen: recognize, imagine, initiate and collaborate, assess, evaluate, and celebrate. And inside of this creative process, we're focusing on certain skills such as listening, understanding larger goals, seeing things in new, unique ways, sharing and piggybacking ideas, and ridding the mind of boxes. So how does that actually look? The first part of the creative process is recognize, and this is where the team is going to receive their challenge. They're going to read the challenge. They're going to understand the challenge. They're going to explore who they are as a team. How do they fit together? How do they work together? How do they interact? And they're going to learn about themselves. What are their strengths? What are the skills that they may not possess yet that they want to develop? All of these things are part of the recognize stage. When they finish this stage, they go into the imagine stage. And the imagine stage is where they're going to take all of that knowledge that they have about their team and the challenge at hand, and they're going to start thinking. They're going to research, and they're going to brainstorm, and they're going to have hopefully a million ideas that they're going to get down in paper, and they're going to use lots of creative problem-solving tools to explore the reaches of the possibilities that there are to solve the challenge that they have chosen. Now, once they have, let's say, come to an agreement on the best way forward to solve their challenge, they're going to move into a cycle, which is the initiate, collaborate, assess stage. And during this stage, the students are going to be looking at various materials. Actually, I should say, even in the imagine stage, they were exploring materials, material properties to see what type of materials would best serve their purpose inside of their solution. So when they get into the initiate stage, they're trying and testing all those materials. They're trying and testing the different ideas that they might have had. Let's say they decided on one idea in the imagine stage, but then they decided, oh, I'm not really sure if that's going to work, so let's try something else out. So during that initiate, collaborate, assess, they're constantly trying something, talking about it, working together, redefining roles, and then working backwards and saying, okay, what were the goals from the challenge? Are we meeting those goals? Could we meet them in a more unique way? And these are all questions that will be asked throughout the roadmap book that I mentioned earlier that will help you guide them through this process of reaching a creative state, let's say. The last stage of the creative process is evaluate and celebrate. And this is where the team is going to reflect on qualitative and quantitative evidence, which they will receive at the tournament. They're going to document, share, set goals for teams and individuals. That's what they're going to do after the tournament is done. So the evaluate, celebrate stage actually begins at the tournament, which is the showcase for them to say, look at all of the stuff that we learned in our recognize, imagine, initiate, collaborate, assess stage. And we are so proud of what we've done. And the appraisers see that. They give them qualitative and quantitative evidence to support how much they appreciated them coming to the tournament. And then they go back and they enter into their evaluate, celebrate phase back in the classroom with you as the team manager, guiding them to understand what they got out of this season, and using the evidence that they documented in the roadmap, using their qualitative and quantitative evidence, and in the end, hopefully setting goals and deciding to continue with DI the next year around. It's very important to very quickly mention that while we call it the creative process, which suggests something linear, it's actually something organic. It should move and come and go however the students feel necessary. So it's not that they start with the imagine stage and whatever they came up with, that's what they have to follow through. We want them to test, we want them to try, we want them to fail, because failure is the only way to success. We have to know what doesn't work to find out what does work. If we're only copying things that we know already work, we are not innovating. So failure is a very important part of the creative process. Which brings me to types of play. So exciting. So during your team meetings, you're going to want to bring in play. And some of the activities in the roadmap already bring in play, but you can feel free to bring in other things like icebreakers or small activities where kids get to experience and use their imagination and rules and find a way to balance that out. So as you see here, there's 3 types of play. We have free play, group play, and game play. So down here, I just love these little videos just to give you a bit of a visual idea of what's going on. So when we look at free play, we can see that we've got people that are sort of working on their own, they're kind of doing their own thing, and they're enjoying it, they're having a lot of fun. Your group play, you have, you see the 2 cats, right? They're playing with each other, trying to figure out what's going on there, but there's no rules to the game. They're just sort of figuring out, playing as it goes. And then you have game play. And of course, we look at this video and you can see this is a sport that has very clearly defined rules. Okay, each one of these types of play develop a different amount of imagination and a different understanding of how rules are important. Free play allows for more imagination, less rules. Group play, you're going to have a balance of rules and imagination, where game play, you have high rules and relatively low imagination. As a team manager, how does this apply to you? So one of the ways you can use free play is having the kids receive a material. You give every team member the same material, a plastic cup, a paper plate, whatever it is you want to do. And you say, okay, everybody go to your own corner of the room and you're going to have 5 minutes to play with it, manipulate it, figure out its properties, enjoy it, build something out of it, whatever you want. Have fun. Okay, they go and do that. Free play. They're just enjoying it. There's no outcome that's expected. They're just exploring. And then they can come back together. And how does this apply to DI? That fun and that being in the moment, that allowing them to just let their imagination flow, then comes back and they can see the imagination of every other person and appreciate that imagination is something that comes from everywhere, and that everyone has a certain uniqueness to share with the team. With group play, you could do a game such as Human Knot, where you have everybody stand in a circle, they cross their arms in front of them, they have to grab another hand across the circle, and then the idea is they have to untangle themselves. Okay, there are very few rules to this game, but they have to figure it out as they go along. They're going to be saying, well, are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to do that? But because there's no rules, they can just figure it out as they go along. And then when they finish that activity, you can then talk about, would it have been easier to have more rules? Would it have been more fun if you were just allowed to do whatever you wanted and nobody asked about rules? So these are the types of questions you can do there. And of course, gameplay, if you play actual games, icebreakers, or my favorite is to have the kids play a game that they know, but erase the rules, that there's no longer any rules. Of course, it no longer is the same game if we can get them to that conclusion. And then they play the game with the rules and discuss, how does it feel different? Is there a reason for rules? How does it help the team as a unit? Okay, so keep that in mind as you're designing your team sessions and talking with the kids, getting them to understand how play can really, really bring out that creative side of them. The last area that I'm going to talk about under our creativity stimulator is experimentation. So we want you as a team manager to get the kids to try and try and try and try. The more they try something, the more they're going to see what works and what doesn't, as I mentioned earlier. Have the team test their theories and build their models. It's very important that they build, even if it's a model. Okay, if it's just a small model, if you're doing a technical challenge, you don't want to be building a stage and then saying, "Oh, that one didn't work. Let's build another stage." That's not that's not realistic. But you can definitely have the team work together on building a smaller model and talking about materials, and even building small models of the materials they'd like to use on the larger model, testing it out, and comparing it with other research they might find online. Ask open-ended questions. So this is important. And a lot of times people ask me, well, what's an open-ended question? And as educators, we are taught Bloom's taxonomy. We know what open-ended questions are, but I'm going to give you an example anyway. If you ask a student a yes or no question or a guiding question, it's no longer an open-ended question. So if you say, will that material support your structure? You are probably trying to guide them to understand. You've seen something that's not working and you're asking the question so that they think, oh no. And then hopefully you'll think to yourself, okay, well, if they say no, then hopefully they'll explore other things. Okay, so that question is a guiding question. It's not really that open-ended, but you can ask things like, how many materials have you considered already? What are the properties of each of the materials you've already considered? These are open questions that get the kids to go back to things they've already done and consider, should I be doing more? Okay, so this is what we're saying with the open-ended questions. And then, of course, we want to encourage the team to try on different roles. There are so many different teamwork model roles out there that you can easily find on the internet. But some of them that we tend to focus on are timekeeping, organizing, and quality supervising. These are 3 of the main ones that we use with Instant Challenge. And it really helps kids see where their strength might lie in a role that they're not sure they've even never been exposed to or just never thought to try it out for themselves. So in the end, what is my final message? Failure is an option. It's so, so, so important that you instill this in your team, that failure is a positive thing. Failure is what will take you to the next step. And as you see in this little GIF here, this person may have made this on their own. Maybe that's what they wanted it to do. Great. Maybe that's not what they wanted it to do. Either way, they're going to be able to document what worked or what didn't work, depending on what their original goal was. So at the end, at the bottom of the screen, this is one of my favorite phrases from Destination Imagination Experience. If it doesn't say you can't, you can. And I would recommend that you make this into a poster and you put it up wherever you're meeting with your team and you really bring that home. Use your imagination, use your creativity, fail and fail spectacularly. And that brings us to our second team manager role, which is the educator. Now, one of the things I want to really point out is that being an educator means that anything that stimulates learning is an educator. And I use anything specifically instead of anyone because everything around us stimulates learning. Everything. Now, do I want to say that the rock in front of my house is an educator? Probably not. That might offend some people. But in reality, we are being educated from the atmosphere around us, whether by people. So it doesn't matter if you're a teacher or a parent or a sibling or an uncle, you are an educator. You don't have to go to school to be an educator. It comes naturally and hopefully through the help that we were able to provide through the program. So there are certain skills that we're trying to foment as an educator. And the first one is teamwork. You want your team to really become a team. So in order to do that, we have to sort of minimize the amount of interjecting that we're doing as adults. So we want to stay a bit on the sidelines. That way we can nurture the team's progress toward their own goals. So they'll know what you'll help them to set up their goals and where they're trying to go by asking these open-ended questions. And then once they've got it written down, you're just going to sort of nurture that. And okay, so have you checked the goals that you've made and how are you doing towards them? Is it working? Do you feel like you want to go back to the imagine stage? All of these types of questions. So you're trying to guide the team growth and you're going to celebrate every part of the process. So every time the team respects each other, every time they communicate, every time they piggyback ideas, everything you want to celebrate so that is a final message that they're going to take away. And of course, the ultimate goal inside of teamwork is teach the team members to guide and coach themselves. So model How do I ask a question of my team? How do I challenge a team member to see something differently in a positive way? All of these skills will, in the end, lead to a very strong team. The next thing is fomenting tool use. Your team members are going to want to use tools. It is inevitable. They are building, they're using engineering, they're using theater, and they want to build props, and they want to build whatever it is they want to build. So we have 3 types of tools. Obviously, there might be others, but these are the 3 categories that we tend to find. Problem-solving tools, which are for idea generation, idea focusing, and they tend to use them most during the imagine stage. A lot of these problem-solving tools are in the roadmap, but you can find them online as well. They're also going to be using hand tools and electric tools. Now, obviously, hand tools are things that they're going to need to learn how to use them properly. Safety issues need to be taken into account. But we also want to find a balance between being too afraid that something might happen and allowing them to learn how to do things. So finding that balance without compromising safety. And this is where I'm going to bring over to the electric tools. You can see that he's using a drill and a peeler to peel an apple. Now, every one of us has probably been watching that since I started talking, going, oh my God, that's terrible. I couldn't do that with my kids. And no, of course not. Please don't allow your kids to do something like that. And that's why I put that example there. It's very important that you are the adult and you know what is dangerous. So it's very, very important that you take that into account and you guide your students and say, no, can't do that. You're going to have to find another way to solve that particular problem. Now, the next thing as an educator that you'll be focusing on is material properties and getting the kids to examine materials. And this snapshot here, I love this team. I watched them present at Global Finals, and they were fabulous. But you can see in their backdrop and even in their costumes and the dragon, of course, the amount of detail that they put into choosing proper materials that would give the effect that they were looking for. So they used paint and feathers and glitter. They used duct tape. They used, I think it's called rafa, the stuff that they have in their hair. They used lots of cardboard, paper bags. I imagine that the dragon inside must have some sort of a shell, which is either made of PVC or it's made of wood or it's made of metal. It had moving parts. So they were using materials that allowed the dragon to, I believe it either had lights on it or, I can't remember all the details, but it was amazing, the use of materials. And the way you get your team to understand that is by giving them those materials, having them bring those materials from home. It can be recycled materials. Please don't feel like you have to spend money on brand new materials for your DI challenge. That's not the way it needs to work. They bring things from home. You give them a straw. You give them a piece of cardboard. You give them a paper cup, and you talk to them and you let them explore. How can these materials be used? Can they be taken apart? Can they be folded? Can they be used in a different way? Can they be peeled apart? There's lots of different ways to explore material properties. Now, moderating the instant challenge, part of the roadmap, let me back up. The roadmap is comprised of various different types of activities. So you'll have team building activities, you will have instant challenges, you'll have indications for your main challenge. All of these things will be incorporated into your roadmap. The instant challenge component itself is very, very focused on practicing teamwork. Each instant challenge has a time limit, a material limit, roles, and a reflection section. So it allows you to work with the kids on solving a challenge, but in a very short span of time. So that on their feet problem solving is really brought out through Instant Challenge. The students love Instant Challenge. It's one of their favorite components of DI because it's always fun. And because it's done quickly, there's no time to really overthink. And now, of course, children who do overthink, they tend to get frustrated. But that, again, as a educator, you're going to talk them through that. You're going to walk them through how as a team they can support each other and they can realize that you did it once, maybe you weren't happy with the result, so we're going to try it again. And we're going to get better and better and better. And then by the end, you're going to feel so amazed at how much you've grown. So all of these things come out inside of the Instant Challenge. Now, the last component of being an educator is teaching project management. Project management is a big component of the Destination Imagination experience. And as you see here on the left-hand side of the screen, we have the 4 stages of project management: defining, planning, doing, and reviewing. As I mentioned earlier in that picture we were looking at of the three team members, they were not doing. They had defined, they'd planned, but they weren't in the doing and reviewing stages yet, okay? And as you can see, the correlation to the creative process is right there. And of course, you have your description there as well. But what I'd like to focus on is how. How do we bring project management to students who might be 8 years old? Part of the challenge is the reward points section, okay? And I've put an example here from one of our challenges for this year. These are the reward points for our, I want to say our scientific challenge, but I'm not sure. So either way, this is our, this is the reward point page. The reward point page is basically a guideline for your team to look at what is required of them. How many points are they going to get for each of those areas? These should be their overall focuses. Each of these points is very, very detailed, described inside of the challenge itself. So they'll understand what each one of those lines means by reading through the challenge. These reward points are a fabulous way to talk about positive because they're going to earn points. They don't lose points. They walk into the appraisal room with 0 points, and what they show earns them points. So it is an all-around positive experience. Other things, of course, that we work on inside of the program are time management and budget management. And there's a separate how-to DI for budget management, and we'll also cover that in our challenge training. So this moves on to our next role of challenge expert. As the challenge expert, you will be helping your students to choose a challenge. We have 6 competitive challenges in DI. Your team will choose one of those challenges that they would like to solve during the season. It is your responsibility as a team manager to understand the challenge that your team has chosen. So to ask questions, to make sure that you completely have an understanding of what is being asked of the students, okay? That is a very, very important role in gauging the success of the students. The next thing that's a big thing to understand are the rules of the road. And again, this goes back to what are the things that are allowed and not allowed during the presentation. For safety reasons, to create a level playing field, remembering that Destination Imagination is done worldwide, and we want everyone to have the same, or at least a similar Destination Imagination experience. The last area would be the clarifications. As the team starts to understand the challenge, we find that teams will have a question about the wording. And so they will send, there's an area on the destinationimagination.org website where you can send in a clarification. And there's a form that the students fill in, and they can write the question. And that question goes off to our international challenge masters who will review that question, and they will look at the challenge and decide whether the wording of the challenge is appropriate or not. And then they will publish those clarifications on the DI website, and you as a team manager will be able to download those, access them, and make sure that the team is aware of these clarifications. This is very, very important to keep them up to date, make sure that they are on, again, a level playing field with everyone around the world. So how do you read a challenge? If you've already downloaded your challenge, you may have been reading through it thinking, okay, it's fairly straightforward. Some of you might be saying, oh my goodness, how are my 8-year-olds ever going to solve this? So what we want to focus on today is give you just a little bit of an idea of how to make it a little easier for your team to decide what are the important pieces of information and how can they find out, or let's say prioritize what's written inside of the challenge. So you can see here in the diagram, we have 4 specific words: must, will, points, and may. And then in the white boxes, you can see that there are instructions. So the first thing that you want to do with your team is read through the whole challenge together. And then you want to make sure that each team member has a yellow, a pink, a green, and a orange marker. And you also want them to have a copy of the challenge. So make sure that when you've read through the first time that they each have their own copy of the challenge. So they're sitting at desks with you, a big table, they've got their markers out, and you're going to go through and you're going to read it again. But this time we're going to do an interactive reading. So they're going to be looking for the words must, will, points, and may. And they're going to highlight as follows. Sentences that contain the word must, they're going to highlight in yellow. Sentences with will in pink, sentences with may in green, and sentences with the word points in orange. Taking into account that the phrase will earn points has both will and points, that particular phrase gets highlighted in orange under points. Okay? And then once they finish that, they're going to go through, it doesn't have to all be on the same day, they're going to go through the challenge again. And then what they're going to look for now are the negatives. So they're going to circle any phrases that say no, must not, won't, will not, may not, anything that's a negative. They're going to circle it. And you can do that in pen or pencil, whatever works for the team, whatever they decide to do. And now they have a really good colored diagram, if you will, of what their challenge is asking of them. So the yellow and pink sentences will contain rules that the team must follow to solve the challenge. And the blue and green sentences are the areas where the team gets to decide what and how to do the task or activity. It's very exciting. This next section is my favorite. And the reason why it's my favorite is because it is the role that allows independent learning to take place and for the team to completely own what they are doing during this DI experience. So being an interference deflector, first thing you need to understand is what is interference. So only team members may contribute ideas and create a team challenge solution and team choice elements. I'm going to read that again because it's very important. Only team members may contribute ideas and create the team challenge solution and team choice elements. At the bottom of the screen, you can see our little diagram here, and you can see the nice no symbol over the word solution. Everything that they are going to present on stage, the ideas, the costumes, the backdrops, everything that goes on that stage needs to be done by the students without interference of any adult or any person outside of the team. So what is not interference? Teaching. Teaching is not interference because you are an educator. So it's very important for you to model, or if you don't know how to model a skill they need, just find somebody who can model it. That's great. Another teacher in your school, maybe a parent who knows how to use a drill or who knows how to use a sewing machine or whatever the kids feel, the students feel that they need to develop. You can bring people in or you can model that for them because that is not interference. Safety is never interference. We're still going to go over the chief safety officer, which is one of our roles, but this role is very, very important, obviously. And it's up to you to decide if something that they're doing is too dangerous. It's up to you to be able to say, I'm sorry, you can't do it that way. You're going to have to find a different way. You're going to have to look for other materials or find a different tool that they can use, okay? What is not allowed is for you to say, oh, well, they're too young or that's too dangerous, so I'm just going to do it for them. And you're not supposed to suggest other methods either. You have to encourage them to go back to the drawing board and consider other types of tools or other ways to solve what they're trying to solve. Challenge support is not interference. So remember, again, one of your roles is the challenge expert. So it is up to you to ensure that they understand the rules of the road. It's up to you to make sure that they understand the challenge itself. Don't panic, though. If you have questions about the challenge, you can always reach out to me at director@diuk.org. You can visit our website. You can go on to destinationimagination.org as well. There are lots of ways where you can get your questions answered, okay, so that you feel comfortable. And of course, we'll have our challenge training next week, so you'll be able to attend that as well. So we now know what is not interference, but what is considered interference. So one of the things is adding your ideas or anybody else's ideas that's not a team member to the solution. And this includes, and you have a couple of things here, right? Cutting wood, sewing a costume, painting the set. Any of your skills or talents that you use to touch in any way the solution that's going to be shown at the tournament, that is considered interference. We want the students to feel complete pride and ownership in what they've done. And we all know as educators that doing is the only way to actually learn and to assimilate what we are learning. Okay, if something is broken, a lot of times we think, oh, well, they've already made it, I'll just fix it really quick. No, we need them to fix what's broken, because if it broke, there's a reason, and they need to reflect on, why did it break? Is it the materials I used? Is it because I wasn't careful? Was it because that we didn't store it properly? So they need to think about that and then figure out, how do they need to fix it? And then, of course, asking questions that lead the team to a solution or idea. So again, I mentioned earlier the guiding questions as opposed to open-ended questions. When you have an idea in your head and you ask a question and you find that what they're actually building looks a lot like what you originally had in your head, there was probably interference. And of course, you can see by this lovely little monkey that's how some team managers feel. I felt this way as a team manager, where I'll say something and then all of a sudden I'll realize, oh my goodness, I probably shouldn't have said that. So it does happen. Just be aware of it, because the more we interfere as adults, the less they will assimilate inside the DI experience. And that brings us to Chief Safety Officer, which is fairly self-explanatory. I'm going to point out that as team safety is a responsibility of the adult that is working with the team, we do require each volunteer, whether it's a team manager, an appraiser, anyone who works with a DI team in any capacity, has to sign the Volunteer Code of Conduct. And this is an online electronic form that you'll be requested to sign when you access the program materials online. It'll pop right up and say, you know, you haven't signed the Code of Conduct. And the Code of Conduct really is just focusing on things like upholding the DI principles, being professional, positive sportsmanship, adhering to the no interference rule, and adherence to the scoring procedures. So these are just some of the things, but you'll be able to read through it, and then you click on the I agree box at the top and you are ready to go. Now, there are suggestions for keeping children safe while you're working with them. Guidelines for this will be different in each country. So depending on the affiliate you're in, it is your responsibility to make sure you are aware of the child protection and child safety laws in your own affiliate. But just to give you a few guidelines, as far as tools go, it's a great idea to establish tool use protocols. Requiring permission slips signed by parents for either transportation, if you are allowed to move children from one place to another in a private car. If you are not allowed to do that, then what are the school requirements for having signed permission slips, and signed permissions for the tools that they're going to use. As far as the team goes, there are some countries that allow team managers or adults to use their own personal car for transportation. There are other countries that do not allow this. So based on whatever the requirement is in your country, make sure that you adhere to those, and make sure you don't put yourself into a position where you are alone with children when you shouldn't be. If you are in a country that requires some sort of background check, make sure that that gets done to protect yourself as well as the children that you are working with. As far as road safety, once again, if you are in a country where you're allowed to do that, make sure that you have your own insurance. Make sure that you are not texting or taking phone calls when you have children in the car. Just straightforward road safety issues. And then school policies. If you're meeting inside the school, it's important for you to understand what the school policies are. Are the kids allowed to have pictures taken? What are those pictures allowed to be used for? Know and follow your school organization policy for adult and student interactions. And make sure that you have proper insurance. Now, the last role that we're going to go through is the facilitator. And really, the facilitator is just all the moving parts, right? That they're working the way they should be. And you're going to make sure you keep the process moving. So the kids are working on all these things. So you need to find and provide meeting space, purchase team number and acquire materials, set initial meetings, take notes and pictures while the team is planning and building solutions, set meeting agendas, work with team members, communicate with parents, coordinate team parent volunteers, organize a tournament, showcase attendance, and celebrate the process. So as you're going through all of these amazing things that you have to do, you want to constantly make sure you're taking a moment to celebrate the process. So in the end, the most important thing for us is for the students to have fun and remember that learning is a great thing. It's not a chore. It's something that we should love to do and that we want to always continue being curious and learning through our entire lives. And we do some of those things by encouraging the team to create a team name, a team logo, making t-shirts with their team logo, using reflection and celebration time at every meeting, the things that they're proud of, the things that they goals that they met. These things should be revised at every single meeting. Just the last 5 minutes, make sure that they have that moment to really celebrate that process. Sometimes you can put music on, sometimes you can bring snacks in. All of these things help it to be a fun experience. So this brings me back to your most important role, life changer. I have worked with many, many students in the Destination Imagination experience, and from children with ADHD, children with Asperger's, teachers who walk up to me and say, I have learned so much about being an educator by doing DI and respecting the ideas of the students and helping them reach new frontiers. These are the reasons why I continue with DI after 9 years. It's why my children have done DI. It's why I continue to promote DI and will probably promote DI for my entire life. So I would like to really thank you for the time that you are spending and their dedication to bringing this type of an experience to your team. And I love this quote, the future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. And this is what we are tackling. DI is trying to bring this experience out to as many children as possible around the world. And thanks to you, we've reached one more team. So thank you very, very, very much for your time and dedication. You can find more information at www.diuk.org, or you can email me directly at director@diuk.org. And if you haven't already, please fill in the poll at the bottom, and please feel free to sign up to any one of our offers that we have in the offer button below. So thank you very, very much for your time, and I appreciate you being here. And feel free, I don't have any questions at the bottom, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And please be in contact, and we'll see you next time.